Hey, I'm Lee Domingue, serial entrepreneur, pastor, husband, proud father of 5 amazing kids, and boss, as they call me, to my 8 grandchildren and counting. Welcome to the Kingdom Builders podcast. I meet with some incredible leaders, business people, and pastors to learn from their life lessons and wisdom as we seek to live a life of true fulfillment and eternal impact. So glad you're here. I am so excited about today.
Me too.
I've been wanting to have my main man, Rick Bezet, on the podcast for the last 27 years.
We started working on it.
We started working on it before the internet, before even podcasts existed.
There was no such thing as podcast.
Yeah, we had Boudreaux and Thibodeau podcast.
Oh, yes, we did.
That was a conversation.
Way back.
But I'm just so honored, brother. I love you a ton. I was thinking about our relationship and kind of preparing for our time together. And I said, man, what are some of the stories and just my journey with my great friend, Rick Bezet? You're pastoring an amazing move of God in Arkansas.
Yep.
You guys have campuses all throughout the state of Arkansas.
So far, yeah.
Wow. And
going
your
good.
secret sauce to your whole life is why you're actually kind of nice sometimes is because you married Michelle.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know.
Without her, man, that girl. Ooh,
You wouldn't have no friends.
No. She tells you. She reminds me of that sometimes. You wouldn't have any
But
friends.
she's amazing. And then all your kids, and now
Yeah.
you got grandkids, and you got in-laws, you got all that going on. But just, you're at a really cool season of life. But I just thought it would just be amazing to spend some time together.
Thank you, Lee.
At our Kingdom Builders podcast, and because you've played a pivotal role.
Thank you for what all you do for pastors, leaders, the business community, the heart of the church.
Yeah.
You care a lot about it. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of leaders, takes a lot of finances to get it done. And you care about all of that. All the times you have flown to Little Rock just to have a talk with me.
Yeah.
Or a talk with a leader in our church.
Yeah.
Your heart is out there. You love the local church.
I do.
Please don't mess that up. Come on, Harrison, help us out.
Before we get into that, we were just in, our families have traveled together. We vacationed together.
Here we go.
We'll get into some of those stories a little bit later.
Okay.
But we were just in California together.
Yeah, that's right.
And we were teamed up to play some pickleball. And, it was you've played pickleball. You're really good at it. So I'm kind of a newbie. It's the 3rd time I ever put the racket in my hand. And you were even pastoring me at that moment.
Oh, yes, I was.
Yeah. So
I wanted to win.
We wanted to win bad. So we
Yeah.
got beat the first couple games, and then the next day, it was a new day. It was a new, and I'm not going to say who we beat up on.
No, you don't want to call them out.
But we just came on with a vengeance, and I'll never forget. I started making some good shots, and you just looked at me and you said, "Man, that was a great shot. Stay humble."
Stay humble. Because after you hit a good shot, you would go crazy and hit it way too hard. I was like, Lee, great shot, stay humble.
Stay humble.
That was our whole strategy. Great shot, stay humble.
Yeah,
You're like,
oh, no.
humble?
It was
I don't know,
amazing.
why are you humble on the pickleball court? But you did it, and we won.
And we won.
Hey,
and we won. We brought it.
respect.
And they want a rematch, and we'll give it to them anytime.
Yes.
Tons.
But don't tell them who it
But
was.
we've had so much. When I think of Rick Bezet, and even Harrison as well, deep love and relationship. Our kids do life with your kids. It's a beautiful thing.
I know.
Anytime goes by, when we reconnect, we could be anywhere in the world, and it's like we haven't missed a lick. Laura, Michelle, me, and you, and I'm just grateful for that. And I wanted to share in kind of the topic today, really to talk about relationships. That you're somebody who I've just watched. You're unoffendable. You're unoffendable. You love people. I've watched you when you're associate pastor at Bethany, when I was just a business person at that church, and you are my oldest, longest relationship with a pastor that I have.
Because they've all died.
And I'm next. Yeah, you're next. Yeah, because they all died. But yeah, hey, they were a lot older.
I'm feeling okay, but a little sick.
But you ended up just marking my life in just conversations that we've had over the years where you've just encouraged me. And there's nobody like you, brother. There ain't nobody like you. The way, I mean, this, not only the sense of humor, but you truly value relationship and you don't give up on people.
Oh, man. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
We worked hard on our relationship. I mean, we liked each other at hello. At least I liked you.
Yeah,
You
no.
seem to like me. And then, you know, we can pick up the phone and call each other and move.
Yeah.
But it's not because we decided to do that. We worked hard
Yes.
on our relationships, traveling together, checking on each other, rebuking each other.
Yeah.
And you say I'm unoffendable. I've never heard anybody say that. I'm offended by that. But but I love you say that. I'm sure I get offended, but man, I love being in a relationship with you. How direct you are. I mean, you're a tough guy, and you're moving through life with purpose. So that's probably one of the greatest things you could say about me. Is that I'm unoffendable.
But it's true. And so for me, I can remember many times in our relationship, especially even in the early years, where you knew I was searching. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to figure this thing out in business. And, you know, I was like, man, I think I got the business thing kind of figured out a little bit, but it's like, I know there's more. And you would counsel me through those. You never tried to tell me what to do. And you would allow me to go on the kind of the journey of discovery. And I'm grateful that you never tried to control me. As my pastor, all you did was speak life into me, my kids. You never tried to control. You never tried to manipulate. You never tried to take advantage. And it truly, especially coming out of, I came out of a tough season in my life a few years before that, where was helping a whole lot of people, a lot of pastors, a lot of believers financially.
Yes, you were.
And like massive, and was helping them, and went through a tough time, lost a business, and nobody was asking me to go to lunch. Nobody was returning my phone call in that season. And I had a chance to get really bitter. I had a chance to like say, c'est la vie, man. I'm not doing this. And God used you in that position that you were in at Bethany as an associate pastor, where we immediately connected. And I was trying to size up the situation. Can I trust this guy? Does he want something from me? Is this like, does he really? And I got to kind of bare my soul. I shared, you know, the scars in my life, all of that. And it just really solidified our relationship. And you were somebody who was trustworthy. You were somebody who, you know what, Lee, I want the best for you, man. He goes, I want the best for your marriage. And you never asked me. You never asked me for anything. And you only wanted the best. And God used you in that moment. And I want the listeners to hear this and to hear this story, because relationships like this don't just happen.
No.
You've got to fight for them. And that's what we did. I never forget, Laura and I were when you and Michelle planted New Life Church on Deer Street in Conway, Arkansas. It was an old car dealership.
Yep. You were there.
And we sat there and we drove up there and we came to that first service, and you had like 500 something people there, and it was a beautiful, beautiful day and launch. We were so proud of you. We missed you, you guys, but it was a moment. And I connected the dots in really preparing for this conversation, and it blew me away because it brought back some memories, Rick. It brought back memories of connection moments of where God used our relationship. And it's just a beautiful thing. I consider you as one of my closest friends, a most trusted friend. And it's just been an awesome, awesome journey. But those things don't just happen.
They do not.
I have a saying, divorce is not an option. If God brings you in covenant with someone, why would he want to rip it apart? Why would he want to rip it apart? And I think sometimes we get amnesia of like, no, this is like a covenant relationship. And so as I honor you, but God used you in so many different moments of not quitting, of being able, and I sum it this way. of learning to trust again. Learning to trust.
But you wanted that.
Oh, I did want it. I did want it. I wanted it because I love the church. I love pastors. I have a supernatural love for the church and pastors, and God's hardwired me that way.
You really do.
And
where did that come from?
I don't know. Honestly, I think God placed that on my life, and it's
Sovereign.
clear.
It's like, he just dropped it on
Just
you.
because any place I'd ever go, I'd find favor with pastors.
Yes.
I'd be in these rooms, and it's like even with ARC, at the very beginning when y'all all started ARC, I'd get invited to these things, and I'd be the only kind of non-pastor guy in that room, and it was just like.
But you knew everybody.
I knew
before
everybody.
You left.
I knew them.
I took you to a conference in Baltimore. I was doing every session. I introduced you. You said hello, and everybody wanted to talk about how you were doing. Yeah. They forgot my name in 13 minutes. No. But you do love people.
Yeah,
pastors.
And so, but love pastors, and I think God took me on that journey of giving me a little bit of a view and a love for them to see what they carry. Not understand fully. I can't say that. I've never planted a church but I looked at, and it's like God gave me a supernatural love for them, and to see what they carry sometimes, and it's a weight, and it's a lot different than what I thought. Not having that visibility, and God used people like you, like Dino, and like Chris, just all these different people, and I look back on that, and He was connecting the dots for me to be doing what I'm doing today.
So fun, and
I wasn't able to see that. And so you got to have somebody in your corner. You got to have somebody who believes in you. You got to have a Rick Bezet in your life.
I love how you talk about covenant. It's a very spiritual word, biblical word, but it actually means something. And we are there for each other. You started out talking about our kids.
Yeah.
That's what covenant does. It's not just you and I. It's not my wife and I with you two.
Yeah.
It's also with people that you love and care about, like your kids, other churches. How many conversations do we have about a church who's struggling, or you care about, and you want me to pray about it? Or what, Rick, how do you think we can help them? Or Lee, how many times do I ask you, Lee, how can we help this church? I do love you. The scripture says, Romans 12, love must be sincere, hate what is evil, and then cling to what is good. You can't just go around hating things that are off track. You first have to have a sincere love for one another. And I'm going to tell you, if I tell you I love you, but you don't believe it, then it's not real yet.
That's right.
You got to know it.
Yeah.
And I think your heart for the church, I saw it early.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because now I can see just the full scope of it. And I thank God that I was involved in it early to see it now. What a story.
Yeah, He used you. Well, we're seeing even our kids, and we've got 5 kids. You guys have 4 kids, and grandkids are just amazing.
So many.
Isn't it so much fun?
I got 9. I don't even know all their names now. I just call them a number, like, hey, number 7, come over here.
So you have 9.
I have 9. That's what I think it's 9.
Now, how many does Haley have?
She's got 3.
Okay, wow.
She did the girls first,
Yeah.
and then Thu and Kim.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of kids running around, and so I love it when they come over. But it doesn't hurt my feelings when they leave. I mean, it's 9 of them. So we have to just bring them in bits at a time.
Harrison's joined us, because Harrison, of course, he absolutely adores you and your family, and has since he was a little kid.
That's
when
right.
we would vacation together.
I remember I've seen pictures. You guys are so little and still know each other, and now your kids are going to be friends. This thing is running.
Arkansas every year to come spend time with Haley.
Yeah, at least once.
Yeah,
And then they're with you, and you guys,
come here.
you probably have a vacation plan now to y'all get
We've
together.
already talked about it.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. How do you maintain, because I've watched your life for almost 30 years now, how do you maintain solid relationships? How do you maintain those? How do you secure those? Because every single one of your relationships you've had challenges, you've had dynamics, things that could make you want to maybe not be as committed, give us enough time.
Yeah, I do.
But how do you stay committed?
That's a great question. I mean, yeah, I've had friends that if I would have died 5 years ago, they would have spoken at my funeral, and now they won't even return my phone calls, and I don't know what happened.
Mm.
And it does break your heart. When people get into trouble, it breaks your heart. When they fall away, it breaks your heart. But it's just so worth it. I do not think that you can be transparent with everyone,
Yeah.
but I do believe you can be authentic with everyone and
That's great.
transparent with a few. So what happened with you and I, if you remember, we had a divine flow right away.
was immediately.
We were laughing, we were checking, we were asking deep questions.
Yeah.
And then our spouses the exact same thing. That doesn't
So
happen
true.
often, but when it does, I think it was John Osteen, who died many, many years ago. But he coined that phrase, divine flow. And
Yeah,
when you have it, it's for a divine reason. So work on it. And I think you and I both knew if we run together,
Yeah.
we could make a big difference. And so I believe in relationships. I'm not an extrovert, an introvert. I love being around people. So does my wife. But that doesn't have anything to do with it,
Yeah.
because you can be an introvert and still have covenant relationships.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to make the phone calls. You're going to have to drive across the nation. You're going to have to be at these big events, and it's just worth it. That's why Chris and I are such good friends,
Yeah.
and my brother and I, and you and I, and now you with my kids. So it's work.
Yeah. So it takes time, commitment, even sometimes getting outside your comfort zone of what was easy.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Yeah, and tough conversations.
Yeah.
I remember these 3 pastors that were running really, really hard. And I said, boys, I want to meet with you.
Mm.
And so we all met together early in the morning. I had to meet with them at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, can I tell you something? I think you guys are going to be in trouble if you don't get deeper in your relationships, because you're all running hard. You're saying yes to a lot of things. You are saying no, but you're still saying yes to too many things. And I'm worried about the call, and not your call to follow God. I'm worried about the phone call that one of you are going to give me when you fall.
Wow.
And I want to talk to you about that. So we talked for a few hours that day and prayed, and we came up with systems that would keep them from falling. And they did it, except for one. He remained elusive. He was just a little slippery. And one day, I'll never forget, on the front porch of my house, he called me. And he goes, "This is the call. This is the call." And that friend of mine, he was telling me how he was losing everything. He had fallen. He was in trouble. And all he had to do was just talk to a friend or two. And he never would. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are a lot of leaders, business leaders, people who are leaders in church and in business, and pastors. They're alone. They don't have anyone to call when they're on top of the mountain, no one to call and say, "Guess what happened?" You would immediately call your friends, and I was always one of those. And then when you were struggling, it wasn't all about how great you were doing, even though you were doing great. It was also extremely authentic where you were in trouble.
Yeah.
Rick, here's some of my thoughts. Rick, here's a plan. Here's what the enemy's trying to do to my mind. And pray with me. Let's cover this. And that's the reason why I've never gotten that call from you, and don't expect to.
That's right. You know, it's it's the, over time, why the relationships too are so worth it, I think, is because over time, it was a safe, and is, not was, it is and was back then a safe place.
Safe place.
To go.
That's a good way to say it.
And so I think a lot of times the people they're elusive and slippery, is because they don't fully trust that it's a safe place. They fear the shame, the rejection, all of that, because if they really knew what I was doing, would they still love me? Or,
That's exactly right.
And so you've had the ability, at least in my own personal life, that's what I can personally speak from, is creating those safe places to where, even if it's a thought, before it's an action, if it's in its infancy, before the damage is done, is to be able to have that kind of open conversation. And I think people long for that now more than
I
ever.
think they do. And you know, the truth is, when you take your heart out and you share it, like you just put it on the table, generally speaking, if it's somebody you're in covenant relationship with, they have more respect for you right after you share this than they did before.
Yeah. That's
Because
really
they
good.
know that you're now in a safer place because you shared it. Now we can cover it. Now we can pray. Now we can go to work and try to make you healthy again.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. I remember this was, I don't know, this is a while back, maybe 12 years ago. And I was just at a place where I was just ready to kind of, like, I don't know about this whole serving pastors. I don't know about this whole, even church thing. If I was honest, I would say kind of fed up with it. And just sitting there going, I don't know about all this. I'm gonna just focus on working. I had a propensity to work a lot, and I loved it.
Yes.
And so, but I loved it, and so I was like, you know what? Maybe I miss God on this. You start having all of those kind of thoughts, and I was ready to quit. And you didn't fully know that. I think you sensed some things. Not putting words in your mouth, but I think you sensed some things because I know you love me. But we hadn't, we weren't talking all the time or anything, but you called me, and I'll never forget where I was in my house, sitting at a counter, and you called me and you said, hey, and it's the only time in all of our relationship that you were that forceful, direct, candid, and you said, it was a corrected word, and I needed it. And you said, you have forgotten who you are. And when you spoke that, it just did something to me. And it was the thing that God used. And I didn't share it. I'm sharing that with you today. So this is not something you've known for, a long time, whatever. But when I first shared that with you earlier, it was like, that was a moment that I wouldn't be here today, Rick. I wouldn't be serving the body of Christ, loving pastors, loving churches, helping churches, much less probably being a good dad or husband or anything else. It was that moment that God used you for me to choose this rather than go back to this. And I'm grateful for that. And you got to have people in your life that are going to love you enough to tell you, hey, you've forgotten who you are. Because I did forget.
Yeah. But you didn't react. When I spoke to you, you responded.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I get back on this right track?
Yes.
And, you had to allow me in. Someone else would have told you the same thing.
Yeah.
And maybe others did. But you
No,
responded.
you were the only one.
Really?
Yes, you were the only one.
I'm amazing.
You were the only one, but I needed that, and so it was a moment. But I think about it, and I think so many times if we'll take the time to invest in relationships, there can be multiple moments that have this incredible impact where somebody's going to make a decision based upon our obedience to love them enough, to be open with them, to take that time and be like, because you were busy. You're trying to build a church. You're trying to deal. You could have come up with 100 different reasons, but you paused and took that moment. And then it had this life-changing impact. And I think so many of us, we sit there and go, that's not my responsibility, or I don't know if I don't want to be that guy that's on them. No, man, privately, love them enough.
And when you have a word like that with somebody God has given you a friendship, if you don't speak it, you're enabling them.
Yeah.
Like years ago, God spoke to me when I was in Bible school and I wanted to quit. A lot of my friends were becoming millionaires and they were trying to invite me into this business opportunity. And then the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, Rick, I just want you, this is leadership. I want you to encourage people. And I wrote that down. And then later, I never heard his audible voice, but I knew, I said, Lord, what's this about, this encouragement? And he just said, my people, strong people, men and women, they're so discouraged.
Yeah.
And I don't think for a second encouragement means just tell them how great they are.
Right.
I was encouraging you the
You
day
were.
I rebuked you.
Yeah, you did.
And so,
It was a corrective moment that brought clarity because I was clouded.
yeah.
And so it was like fresh air. It wasn't like I felt like this heavy rebuke. It was like, whoa, 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 he's right. It was almost like throwing water on somebody that was asleep. That all that you
That's
just kind of
so
just come, and you're just like, wow, okay, no, he's right. I got to remind myself who God's called me to be. And it was like at that moment, I got in line. And
It's Christ-like because the Lord had a lot of attributes. He healed
Yeah.
people. He went around loving people. The Sermon on the Mount, just so much encouragement. But he had absolutes too.
yeah,
This is where you're going to be in trouble. Get thee behind me, Satan. He was blunt. So
yeah,
we're not just talking about just being ooey gooey,
Right.
lovey-dovey. I mean,
that's right.
and you're not that way. You can encourage somebody, but you look in their soul
Yeah.
and tell them when they're off track. And I think that's why God has given you a lot of friends.
Yeah,
That's my take on it.
that's awesome. Harrison, I want to pull you into this conversation because I know how much Rick means to you. But from your perspective, as someone who's grown up most of your entire life, almost all your entire life, around with some connection and around with
Since
the
I was
whole
three.
Bezet
Since I was
family.
3 years old. It's
Yeah,
the first
3
time I
years
met the
old.
Bezets.
Yeah.
I'm 30 now, so.
What does it mean to you to see, like, what does it mean to you from a perspective of seeing your family have close relationships that are lifers, they're lifetime relationships?
Honestly, it's a great model for us because Haley and Luke and Hunter and Katie and Tanner and Grace and Kyle and Emily, like I've gone on vacations with all of them ever since I was
Without
a little
us,
kid.
Rick.
Without us, we've gone to some cool places too.
Yeah,
they would have been
without us.
cooler if y'all would have been there. They would have been better.
No, it would have been paid for.
That's
We'd have
what I meant by cooler. Would have been
That's
cheaper.
right.
We may have eaten a little better if y'all would have been there. But it's been super cool. Honestly, I don't know if security is the right term, but it brings like a peace as a child growing up, always knowing, hey, we have these things coming with these it was kind of like our bonus family, bonus friends, if I could even, that's the way that I used to try and describe it to other people, because people are like, what, do you not have friends here? Why are you always going to Arkansas? Why are you going down to the beach? I'm like, because they're our people, they're our family. I'm like, so trying to explain that to people, but the way you have loved my dad through me, in the way that you've encouraged, you said, the Lord spoke to you to be an encourager. The amount of times I went back and looked through my phone, because I still had some of the text of the happy birthdays, just the random, hey, I believe in you. Hey, you are the man. That many times when I didn't feel that way, all through high school, through college, I will never forget, and you probably won't even remember this, but when I was trying to decide whether I was going into ministry or not, you're like, hey, come up to our conference, come spend some time with me. You come stay at my house. Oh, yeah. And, so I'm sitting here, and then I remember one night just talking to you late, and because you had just preached on this topic about how sometimes the thing that you are most afraid of is the thing that God's called you to do, and the thing that God's most equipped you to do in your life. But the hindrance is it's your biggest fear. And so going into ministry was a big fear for me, because I was like, it just was kind of unknown. We were trying to navigating a lot of different things of transition from moving from Baton Rouge to Birmingham. And my first message I ever preached, you happened to reach out to me, and you're like, hey, just thinking about you. Give me a call when you got a second. And I called you, and I was writing a message, and I was like, I'm about to preach my first message. And you spent the next 30 minutes helping me write my message and just loving on me. And I don't know how many people have ever gotten to have Pastor Rick Bezet help write your first message when you're in college, but it was pretty great. That message crushed. All my next ones,
so
everyone was like, what happened with the first one that you wrote? And I'm like, but it's
what's amazing is that I don't think you and I ever picked up on the fact that we would have kids who would be friends as well. We didn't do it for that reason, but that dividend alone,
It's generational.
it is
pretty cool.
incredible.
It's pretty cool.
Like the investment of a pastor into a business. When I was in Bible school, the dean spent a lot of time trying to share with me, don't get close to people in your church.
Wow.
Don't get close to the leaders, to the business people, because you're the anointed one. Man, just think we would have missed all of
Would have
this.
missed all of it.
It's just not true. We have to have friends as well.
Yeah.
And gosh, to see this now passed down, and there's nothing going to stop it with your kids and
Absolutely
our
not.
kids. So.
I mean, our kids still every summer they say we want to go to Ivy's house. We want to go to Ivy's house. Talking about your granddaughter, and I'm like, so I mean, we every summer we plan it, and so we just love you guys. But honestly, thankful for both of you not giving up on that, because now we have life friends, and honestly, kind of just a model of what doing life together really looks like. And I just want to thank you in front of my dad and publicly, just for always believing. You've always been one of the greatest encouragers in my life. And so just getting to be around you, and I've always looked up to you so much, and I appreciate you.
Man, am I glad I'm doing this podcast. That's just really encouraging, because I remember those moments.
Yeah.
But you being young, moving through life fast, with a lot to do, the fact that you remember as well, I don't know. It just means a lot to me.
So Rick, when I think of our relationship, it hit me while you were talking. One of your greatest gifts is you always have time for people.
Yeah.
I don't know there's very few people that I personally know that because it's not have time, you make time for people. That's the difference.
Thank you.
And it just hit me, is you make time for people. Michelle's the same way.
She is.
You make time for people. And there's I don't know if that's just a supernatural grace that you can navigate, but you have it. And, you get to know people and you get to love people or not when you travel with them.
That's a fact.
And one of our first moments to travel.
Tell them this.
Come on.
Here we go.
It's 1999.
Is that, you know the year?
I know the year. I know the month.
I know the money.
Yeah.
I went broke on that thing.
So we got to tell them. So we always grew up, as you know, we grew up loving water sports, skiing, wakeboarding, barefooting, slalom, all that stuff. So we love all that. So we had this Mastercraft ski boat, and we loved going on it, and you guys would join us. And so we had this wild idea: what's the nicest lake in America to go to
Without alligators.
Without alligators?
Because when you're
in the
from
South.
Louisiana and you go water skiing, there's alligators.
Yeah, there's
everywhere. People are
alligators.
watching them. There's one right there. It's true.
I know. But we went to Arizona. We rented an RV.
I
and I said,
remember.
Rick, I got you. I said, I've got the RV. I said,
gonna
we'll rent
cover.
a houseboat.
Yeah.
We'll rent a houseboat. We get this really nice houseboat. So you and I drive 30 hours. Like, we're in this little RV with 7 kids, me, you, and Michelle. And it
Pulling
was-
that boat.
Pulling that boat. We get out, every time we get for gas, you would take the kids out, make them do calisthenics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. And so, but when we get there, we get on that houseboat. But as we're going there, because of your gift of generosity,
Well, you said you're going to pay for it all. I was uncomfortable with that. Said, okay, I'll just cover the gas. Huge mistake.
it was especially,
And you should have not said okay. I rebuke you again. You should have never agreed to that.
You said, hey, I got the gas. I got it. And I'm like, you're an associate pastor at a church. I was like, man, does he really know what he's doing? And
No.
so since you were my pastor, I'm like, he must know what he's doing. And so you paid for the gas in the RV. Then when we get to the dock, we have this 70-foot houseboat.
And it needs gas.
It's a lot of gas.
A lot of gas. It wasn't
And so we get in there, and we were out on that water for a week.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a beautiful trip.
And
It
that
was amazing.
Mastercraft will pull use gas.
Yeah.
The
yeah,
jet ski, gas. It's everything.
And so, and then what it was like, and then we get
And I was
back.
looking for like the lake where it would go downhill.
Yeah.
And the lake never goes downhill.
No.
Like I wanted to be able to coast. Let's just coast on the boat.
Yeah. No, ain't no
All the kids
coasting.
wanted to go for a
No.
ride. Like, let's just stay here.
No, let's chill
park it
today.
at the island.
But we had a great time, and that I tell you what, you spend a week on a houseboat, you spend 30 hours one way on an RV, you're going to get to know people.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I think that trip solidified
It really
our
did.
kids and our relationship.
100%.
We're just
We
traveling
still share
together.
those, like anytime we get together, we tell the stories.
We got to do a Lake Powell trip,
We
too.
just need to fly there.
Yes.
I can't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
we
we
can't
And
do
I'm
the
not
RV.
paying for the gas. It's on you, businessman. Hey, look, I just paid it off. And that was
25, that's 25 years ago.
25 years ago. I paid it all. That felt so good. We burned that thing out in the back, that last bill. I'm kidding about that, but it did take me a while. And shame on you. For
You never
making me
said
cover that.
nothing. You never said a word.
It cost me more than my annual salary paying for that gas.
Hey, but you
I
let your
could have
yes
bought
be
2
yes and your no be
motorhomes.
no.
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
I'd rather
gosh.
go to the alligator place to ski than back to that
Let's keep
place.
back. Well, but that was a great trip, and we've had several.
We
and
need a
will
Lake Powell
continue to.
2.0.
Yeah, we do need to get a 2.0.
2025, here we come.
What would you tell pastors? Honestly, any leader, Rick. How as a pastor can you be how can you be a friend? How can you be a friend as a pastor? Because you've mastered that. There's a lot of pastors, they're taught in school, man, don't get connected with people. You got to guard yourself, keep buffers. You're wise with your relationships, but you're not looking through the lens of a buffer. You're looking through the lens of a life that really matters. And so how is it relationship-wise? If you're telling pastors that, because they need it. The most unconnected people right now, we just heard that in a session earlier today, talking about how people, they're content heavy, but there's not any relationship. There's no community. And we have all these ways to get together, but it just is not the same. Help pastors today, because you've mastered it.
So I'll say he has the perfect balance of, but also still keeping I'm your pastor. There's still the honor, because I know some pastors, they swing on the other side where there's
point.
no honor. There's no, there's just a
familiar.
friend. It's too familiar. And so
a good
I'm
point.
like, yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. How would you teach a pastor? What would you tell that pastor?
I think what's above that is also worthy of discussion.
Okay.
It's like we're all driven as a pastor. We should be more called than driven. I think we work an incredible amount of hours. No way to measure that. You say, how can you have friends? I will flip it and say, I don't see how you can't. Because if you're doing it right as a pastor with leaders, you really don't know when you're at work and when you're playing.
Oh, that's
You
good.
described that trip to Lake Powell. Was that work or play? I honestly don't know. When people ask me, Rick, how many hours a week do you work? I don't really know, because I love what I do, because I'm with people. I'm not alone. And I think we should be intimidated about being alone. The body of Christ has to be connected. There's no option to jump out. The early church, they broke bread together, they traveled together, they shared things that were in common with one another. And then the Bible says that they grew daily, those who were being saved. Of course they did. They had sincere relationships.
Yeah.
And I think it's a worthy effort to walk across a room and build a relationship with someone. You can't do it everywhere, but you have to do it somewhere.
Yeah.
And those that are listening right now, let's just say they feel like they're on an island. There's a bayou in Louisiana called Bayou Cell. And let's say they're alone. First of all,
Yeah.
they're hurting. And if something's wrong with them, other people notice it, but they can't bring it up because they don't know when they can bring it up. And it's just a dangerous place to live. And I would think a pastor should reach out to a leader in their church. Not just lateral to other pastors and not even to their pastor, but the people that are around them. Take your heart out, and it's great. Is it painful sometimes? Yes.
Yeah.
But is it worth it? Yes. I.e., what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And I'd like to flip it and ask you from the business perspective, because there's a lot of our listeners are going to be kingdom builders.
Yeah.
How would you recommend for these business guys to be that friend to their pastors?
That's a great question.
How would they?
I think
that?
number one, and this may sound super simple, but I don't think it's practiced that much. I'd start praying for your pastor every day.
You do that.
I do that. Pray for your pastor every single day. Pray for them. And I think that is the precursor to any relationship whatsoever. Just start praying for them. Don't ask them for anything, but you can ask them how you can get involved, and ask them what their vision is. Honestly, I know that sounds kind of cliche, what's your vision? But get to know them. Like, can I be praying for you? Is there areas that I can serve? Not an idea that you bring up. They got lots of ideas. They got lots of vision. What they need is allies and resources, and they need help.
Great point.
And so most pastors that I know, man, they got plenty of vision. They don't need the 1, 2, 3 business corporate strategy to do X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. What they need is somebody to help them along the journey and come alongside them. And so I would say join them at the table, but know that God's given them the vision, but you certainly can help them with the pace of it, number one. But getting to know them, praying for their families. Probably the biggest eye-opener that I had after 30 years in business and then really focusing a lot on all ministry was the incredible weight and the compartmentalization that pastors had to live in.
They do.
And what I mean by compartmentalization is you walk into one room and it's a wedding. You walk in the next room and it's a loss of a child. You walk in another one, it's somebody sold their business and has this liquidity moment and success. You walk in this other one, it's a divorce. It's an infidelity issue. It's an addiction issue. It's a suicide. It's all these different, that has nothing to do with their family. That's just the normal days of a pastor. So it's 24/7. And I never thought that until God started giving me kind of this inside view. And I wish every single business leader could set foot for 1 week in the shoes of their pastor.
Wow, yeah.
Well said.
And actually see and touch and taste and walk through what they walk through. It would give you a whole different perspective. When I was CEO of an organization and had a lot going on, the load that it took was not comparable to pastoring people. It wasn't. And I tell any CEO, any business person, yeah, it's great that you're doing what you're doing like that, but you can go home and you can turn that off. A pastor, they can't, because it's people.
No.
And so it really elevated. It gave me even more of a compassion, but a love for them and a respect for them that was different than what I had before. And so I wish every business leader could do that. But what they can do for them is get to know them. Like, what's on your heart? Don't put a bunch of requests and weight on them. They got plenty of weight. Get to know them. Some of my pastor friends, their greatest gift to me was allowing me access in their world. And you can't allow everybody access in your world. Oh. Jesus had different levels of relationship. He had 5,000 he fed. He had 70 he sent out. He had the 12. And inside the 12, he had different levels of intimacy and relationship with these people. So I think it's a great model for us to follow. But let the pastor open the door. I have a saying. I think pastors, local church pastors, hold the key that unlocks the door of destiny for their business leaders. I'd really believe that. Because if they set vision, so if they set the vision to reach the community, and I'm talking about Christian business leaders, if they set the vision and the business leader sets the pace, that means that God's called them not to compete against one another. He's called them to complete each other.
That's it.
And you need each other, but you have to know the specific area. Like, God's given me grace. Because this is the thing. When we're successful at business, we think we can be successful at everything. And that's a trap.
Yeah, so good.
Look at the life of Saul. He thought he could be the priest and didn't wait on Samuel and took matters into his own hands. And it cost him everything. because God's a God of order. But order always precedes order precedes growth. So we want to grow. Well, God's a God of order. And so that pastor has an anointing on his life. He's gifted in this certain area. Like, you're not supposed to be him, but you can certainly come alongside him. He's not supposed to be you.
That's right.
But when you come together, your destinies are really intertwined. And let the pace of relationship be led by a grace and the Holy Spirit. Don't try to force it. Don't just allow it. Be available. Our relationship was developed because you were available. You made yourself available. You could have been hanging, doing all kind of different things, but we have divine flow. So it was worth it for us both to commit to that. Other relationships you have, they're not quite as close, but they're still great relationships. And I think as pastors, all of those relationships matter. But I will say this to every business leader that's listening, and I've given my life to this, so I'm partial, is you'll never fulfill your destiny. You won't fulfill your destiny as a Christian business person of all that God has for you unless you are planted in a church and you are coming alongside and doing life and helping move that church forward and the vision of your pastor forward. I think the two are tied. And I've given my life to it, and it's proven to be true.
That's a word.
The local church is never going to be the hope of the world without this relationship coming to pass because they both need each other. It's mutual respect born out of mutual need. It's mutual.
Mutual need.
Yeah.
Mutual respect.
Mutual respect. And you don't, we love terms like honor, loyalty, respect. We love those things. But they're only really honor, loyalty, and respect when they're reciprocated.
That's right. It's not a one-way street.
No. And you've modeled that. And I'm grateful for my pastor, Chris Hodges, and grateful for Pastor Dino Rizzo, and just all the different people that Curry Juno, just all the different guys that God has given me the privilege to, because you're great friends. And we do life together, and it's extremely fulfilling. And I wish every business leader had that. Every business leader.
Yeah, they need to create that divorce is not an option moment with their pastor. Because I'm not a pastor, so I've never planted a church, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I talk to pastors all the time through Grow Leader and Kingdom Builders, and it seems like most of these pastors are working so hard to convince their people to partner with the vision versus these business people planting themselves in the house, creating security with their pastor that, no, hey, I'm with you. You go get the vision from the Lord and let's charge the hill together. Versus so many pastors are working on trying to appease because society has allowed people to think that they have to be appeased and self-serve. But I'm seeing all these pastors are spending so much time instead of reaching people trying to appease the person.
And when you bring these people to the table, they're smart.
Yes.
They get it. They see things in a room that are different than other people. And to bring them in, ask a question. Hey, we're thinking about buying this or building this, or I'm thinking about doing this vision. What do you think about it? They help so much. So we need each other in our prayer time, in our think time.
Yeah, that's great.
And we can't do it on our own. And I thank God for business relationships.
And the business relationship needs to honor the office of the pastor in their life, and to be able to know that if they want to accomplish it, their destinies are intertwined. And so to encourage those business people to come along their side, their pastor, and help accelerate the vision and help make it easier. There's so much division in the church today.
One of the greatest things that you and a handful of guys in my life help me with, and I love this saying, I say it all the time, you helped me become rich where I was poor.
You do say that, and I love that. Because when you're dealing with a business person, some of them are extremely successful and some are not. Some of them are very wealthy somewhere, but they're all bankrupt somewhere. You told me that one time.
Yep.
Rick, find out where they're bankrupt and help them.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, that's a worthy journey. But pastors are bankrupt somewhere too.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's related to relationships. They're lonely.
Yeah.
Like they are extremely lonely without a friend. Although I think God He's brought people to them to be their
Yeah.
friends, but they just didn't know they could initiate
It's
it.
all of us have had setbacks. I know in my life, and I think the majority, if not all, of my setbacks or shortcomings or whatever challenges that I've had to go through. And I heard someone say once that there's a return on failure. And I never heard that before. I know about return on investment, but return on failure. And then he took it to another level. He said, the value of failure is learning, but the value of learning is improvement. And I think about things that I've learned over the years. What's one thing that you say, man, I got a return on failure in this area?
It's awesome. You asking me?
Yeah.
Well, I've had a lot of failures, and I have a big vision. Usually, if you have a lot of vision, you're going to fall short. Yeah. And I'll tell you what keeps me from failing is relationships. Michelle, a lot of pastors and a lot of leaders out there, they have a bunch of people enabling their mistakes. They just look around them. So when they fail, no one can even talk to them about it. And I think the failures that I've had in my life, my wife will call me out on it. She is an exhorter to me.
Yeah.
But she will say, Rick, that's just not... I remember when I first started church, I would exaggerate too much in my stories. And she would call me to the side after. She goes, that's not what happened. It wasn't 75 people, it was 50 people. Don't
75 sounded good.
Yeah, 75. Babe, the people need to hear this.
Stirring
You
some
can't
faith.
tell a story too big for God.
You're sabotaging my faith.
Yeah. So I think you can circumvent a lot of failure relationally instead of, after. But the failures that I've made and had in ministry and in life, I mean, they just
What's been
go
your
on
greatest
and on.
return? What's been your greatest
From
return?
failure?
From one. Just what's been a great return that you had? Could be not quitting. It could be like going through. So for me, in the spirit of transparency, when I lost my first business, or I'll take one, when we were on the boat on Lake Powell, 1999, my largest bank client ended the relationship, and I'm via my cell phone on top of that boat. And I came down off of the top of that boat.
I remember it
white
well.
as a ghost, because it's like I got people, families. And this bank relationship they were terminating the relationship, and so I said, man, I'm gonna fail. This is it was a lot of weight on me. And I'll never forget what it did is it led to a different bank and relationship that actually catapulted us into, which if I had never gone through that, I'd probably just still be working and building some small, profitable but small company. But it was that next relationship that forced me to go discover and find. So it was tremendous return.
I remember
on
that. And man, failures, the most intimate one was my marriage, my first year of marriage. I was a pastor. We were in full-time ministry and we got married. That same month, all of this started together. And Michelle and our relationship was fraudulent. And we were arguing all the time and no one knew. We'd walk into a meeting and arguing the whole way. And I'd put my arm around her and people would say, man, we wish we had a marriage like you. And it wasn't good. And then one day I just yelled at her, shut up, Michelle. I'm sick of this. And then the Holy Spirit just spoke to me and said, you need to settle this with your wife, but I want you to do it in front of people. And I was preaching a sermon and I told them that story with Michelle in the front row.
Wow.
And asked her to forgive me.
Wow.
And it was in that moment. And now I think God uses us in marriage more than anything else because we admitted that failure ended up being a launch.
Wow.
Into one of the most important things I do as a pastor.
Wow.
So,
well, we're grateful that you did that, and grateful that you've helped Laura and I. You guys have stood with Laura and I, and we're just so grateful for you and your friendship, and even
Cultivate.
We were messing with Laura. I got to tell that one
man,
story.
please
I got to
tell
tell it. I got to tell it.
everybody.
So Laura's, it's her 30th birthday, right?
Yep,
She's born
you
in
just turned
December.
30, but she was 30.
So she's born in December, and it's right around Christmas. Well, I was busy putting Christmas lights up on her birthday, and I was purposefully doing this, and she was so mad at me because I was she has no idea what's going on. And so I'm in I'd come home from the office, I'm in my suit clothes, and I'm out in the bushes doing Christmas lights. And she's like, it's time to go. We're going to go out to dinner, right? It's my birthday. I was like, I don't know. I'm busy doing these lights. And I said, I don't know if we may need to do it on another day. Oh my God. And so she was getting so mad. She says, I'm calling Rick and Michelle.
You did.
And so
That was all a setup.
She called Rick and Michelle. She goes, we need counseling. I said, you call them right now.
Call them. And
They call them. So she calls y'all. Look, man, I'm just like
You
casting
had
that
it.
date. And so I was like, well, look, they got to drive all the way from North Baton Rouge, and let's just meet at my office. She goes, I said, we're going to deal with this. I said, yeah, we're dealing with it. So we get there, we get dressed, and we go, and y'all are in the parking lot. And they get out and said, all right, Rick and Michelle, we need a lot of help. Let's go inside my office, because we were in front of my office. We go inside my office, and it was a surprise party for Laura.
Surprise!
So we surprised her. She looked at me. She was so mad.
As a pastor, we're not supposed to lie, but that was a good lie. It was fun, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Look,
Lord.
I don't know if she's forgiven me for that.
She hasn't.
but
I can
no.
still see a little bitterness
Yeah,
right
she
there.
has a little issue. She needs to go to freedom. But that was hilarious. But yeah, that was one of the Bezet, Pastor Rick counseling sessions.
Thank you for all the fun, all the memories, the times we challenged each other in Christ.
Yeah.
All the boudin.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've
had crawfish, etouffee.
You do
we've
a
had
serious crawfish bowl.
We've had shrimps. We've had
Shrimps.
shrimps a lot of different ways.
Oh, shy.
And then we've had albasha, which is
Albasha.
Cajun Lebanese.
Which is a whole nother story.
That is a whole
It's
nother
not
story.
Lebanese. And it's not Cajun. It's Cajun Lebanese.
Yeah, it's Cajun Lebanese. That's
Yeah.
exactly
You
right.
can
And
only
it's the
get
best.
that.
And
you
you
gotta
can't
have a little bit of
replicate it.
Boudreaux somewhere around.
You can't. And but before we end this, I had one question.
Okay.
Is I'm sure people ask you all the time. They ask you all the time. What's your favorite Cajun joke?
Oh, gosh. My favorite Cajun joke. Oh, man. I love the one where Boudreaux goes into Tony's Seafood on Plank Road in Baton Rouge. And he came out. You can't eat there. You got to go in and get a bag of something and you bring it out. Boudreaux goes in there and he comes out and he has a bag in his hand. And Thibodeau said, hey, what you got in that bag? Oh, what you going to tell? He said, I ain't telling you nothing. He said, come on, what you got in that bag? I ain't telling you nothing. He said, come on. He said, all right, I'll tell you, but you can't tell nobody. He said, what you got? He said, I got some boudin. He said, let me have one. He said, I ain't letting you have it. He said, come on. He said, all right, I'll let you have one, but you can't tell nobody. He said, but you got to guess how many I got in here. And Thibodeau said, I don't know. What you think? He said, you got to guess both of them. You got to guess both of them. And he said, 3. He said, no, I think it's 4. I don't know. And he messed it all up.
You got to guess both of them. For those of you that don't know Boudreaux and Thibodeau, those are two of our favorite sons in Louisiana. Louisiana people, you may not learn that much, but you're going to have
a
great
good time.
You're going to laugh.
Oh, and they don't get much done. Like Marie said, Boudreaux, what you going to do today? He said, I ain't going to do nothing. She said, that's what you did yesterday. He said, I know, I'm not finished yet. We got a bunch of them. We better wrap this up.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
gonna-
Well, my brother, we love you
Love
a
you
ton.
too.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for
Thank
this.
you for all you do for the body of Christ. Thank you how you love
Yeah.
on people, on pastors. Thank you how you believe in the local church as well. And so we just honored. And thank you for hanging out with us today. Love you a ton.
Let's keep building the kingdom, right?
Let's do it together.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah. God bless you.
Harrison.
Thanks for tuning in to the Kingdom Builder Podcast with Lee Domingue. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to live out your calling, impact others, and build God's kingdom in powerful ways. Stay connected with us for more stories of generosity and purpose, and visit kingdombuilders.us for more resources to help you grow as a kingdom builder. Until next time, keep living with purpose and advancing the kingdom.